evening. Welcome to Give Me a Moment. I'm Barbara Mallory Caraway, and thank you so much for joining me this evening on this it's Monday evening, and the weather in Dallas is about to change. It's going to get colder. But we have a lot of other things in our communities that seems to be chilling. The chilling effect of gun violence, the chilling effect that even though the national economy is doing well, in our communities, the unemployment rate continues to rise. And given the fact that the pandemic has affected the educational opportunities of our children, we're still grappling with the issue of when and how they should go to school. But more importantly, today I want you to know is that was the last day to register to vote in the upcoming March the 1st primary. And that's very important to know. In our last show last week, I implored and asked you to get registered, but most importantly, go to vote. There are so many of us who don't believe in fact that it matters, that your vote matters. And as I consistently say, if it didn't matter, why are so many voter suppression laws being enacted across the country to prohibit you from voting? We must vote to change the system by which we live in. So, and I ask you on March the 1st to go to the polls in numbers. But most importantly, vote for Barbara Mallory Caraway for Congress. I'm Barbara. You know me. I've served on the Dallas City Council in the Texas Legislature. You know me because I served and worked with the legendary brother Joe Bagby. You know me because I have knocked on your doors. You know me because I have worked for a better life for you and your families. I want you to look at my record. I want you to really look and compare the candidates because I'm confident that at the end of the day, there's no better person that can represent you in Washington. And I need your vote. Early voting, and today is January the 31st. For all practical purposes, January is gone. Early voting starts in 2 weeks on February the 14th. It is unbelievable how quickly time passes. Unbelievable. The election is March the 1st. We are coming up on Black History Month when we will be reminded of the legacy of people who literally died and shed their blood so that you and I and everyone could have that right to vote. And people are talking about how our democracy is threatened, that our democracy is an experiment, that our founding fathers said that this is an experiment. Well, what would you prefer? At least in theory, some say that this is just an experiment, that there is more people who have the opportunity to participate in this thing we call democracy. Because before that, we were on an authoritarian, dictatorial type of rule where we were ruled by this British, what they say, the sun never set on the British Empire. Well, if you don't watch out, the sun will set on all of us. And so as we move forward in this next election, in the midterm, I'm asking for your vote on March the 1st. Now, what makes me worthy of your vote? It's just not my experience and my tenacity, because it's no secret. I have run for this office 5 times. I am number 5 on the ballot. Now, the interesting thing about this election is because of redistricting, parts of Congressional District 30 is now in Tarrant County. There are 14 precincts that are in Tarrant County, which 360 is the western boundary, and then it pushes in to Dallas, almost to Box Springs, and then you have downtown, Cedar Hill, Duncanville, DeSoto, Glen Heights, not in Ellis County, but Dallas County, Lancaster, DeSoto, Pleasant Grove. And so it's almost 800,000 people. I'm originally from Amarillo, Texas. Do you know that that population is only about 200 or more, just a little over 200,000. There is some growth going on there. And so look, you have the growth of Congressional District 30. That's almost 4 times the size. And if you want to say 200, we can say three times the size of Amarillo. So we have a person in myself who's willing to put herself on the line for you. I've challenged the status quo. I am not afraid to do that. It is said that a person must show their worthiness. And I hope I have shown that through my tenacity. Okay, there's my spiel as to why I think that I'm the best person for this seat. But let's talk about some real issues. Let's talk about what has been going on in our community for decades and what we must do to turn the tide. I am very concerned about the gun violence that's going on in our community. And even Mayor Eric Adams in New York, there were 3 police officers that were killed. 3. And so what does that say? Through gun violence. There was a young man in Mesquite that was 16 years old, shot down, and as of today, there is still no suspect in custody. I hear gunshots in my neighborhood, random gunshots. What is it about the fact that we cannot get these gun laws under control? Well, last September, Texas passed a law to almost anyone can own a gun. We're back in the Wild Wild West days where everybody might as well put your holster on and go the fastest one. Well, we must do some federal legislation, so that everyone who does not deserve to have a gun, and I use that word and it's not loosely used. Everyone should not own a gun. And I'm not saying that there should not be a Second Amendment. The Constitution allows that, but a lot of that is taken out of context. So we have to look at how we're going to control these guns because it is killing our communities, literally. Our communities are in decay. I get so tired. I'm going to tell you. I know this is a city issue. I was on the city council, all these roads, it's like riding on a roller coaster. You dodging pothole after pothole, and you're looking at ways to not only harm yourself, but your family. So not only looking at ways on how we need to get gun violence under control, but we got to look at ways of bringing a more stable, viable community. A place where families feel safe to live, where you can raise your children. I have not been a part of that defund police movement because who are you going to call when you need help? But I am for police reform. We must look at ways that we have confidence in our law enforcement. And that includes, there's an organization, and I mean, this is not new, it's not novel, but ways by which, and communities can live with police. There has been a contentious relationship with law enforcement since the days even before we came to this country. It's not something that's new. But I want to talk about just a moment about some recommendations for police reform from the Human Rights Watch. It is not unlike, as I said, what many of us has advocated, including myself, on the Dallas City Council and as a state legislator. We must improve the quality of schools. There's my phone. Let me turn it off, but it's going to ring for a moment. Just click it off. Impoverished communities, including funding for quality after school, preschool, and child care programs for our youth. I have a record. I'm not just talking. I created the Youth Commission for the City of Dallas. As a state legislator, I didn't have to pass legislation to make sure that our young people had summer paid internships and had the opportunity, if they wanted to go to college, that they could. But most importantly, we must fund, promote, and encourage local initiatives and enterprises that provide employment, training, education, and recreation for people in our communities, our impoverished communities. and include formerly incarcerated people. We're moving into a digital age. We cannot keep ignoring the fact that because we're moving like that, then we need to provide training, job opportunities. And you know what I always say about how much you should pay a family? I have McDonald's Thursday. Then when I pick my nephew Aiden Black up from school, that is our time that we go to McDonald's Thursday. Now, I'm not a big fan of what he likes to get at McDonald's, but I used to like, he gets his Happy Meal. But the thing about this is that look at a family of four. Family of four. Now, by the time, it actually depends on where you go, but just think if you have a family of four, I mean, the adults are not going to eat a Happy Meal, so you're going to spend $8 to $10 at McDonald's. Yes, McDonald's, because by the time you get a hamburger, fries, or shake, it's going to be about $20 for adults, and then you got your kids. And if you're working at a minimum wage job, how many hours you got to work? How many hours do you have to work just to go to McDonald's for four people? Four. Can you imagine if you want to go to a restaurant, how long you would have to work? So all this living wage, a living wage is not necessarily that much because it costs so much to live with your overhead. So we must provide an opportunity for people to earn a living. And it's money floating out there. They made so much money, these companies and businesses, not small businesses, because I support what happened in trying to support businesses during the pandemic. And even corporations got some money. It was exposed. But we've got to have an opportunity for people to really live. So, and I don't mean lavishly, just to be able to pay your bills. And finally, in this part of what I want to talk to you about is on this police reform. For my platform does not include, I want to say it again, defunding the police. But we must include more confidence in the people that are sworn to protect us. For I would implore and support collecting data on police activities, not by race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability, and other relevant demographic markers, and make it public. Make it public. We have to do that. We have to do that to bring about more confidence in our police and who they are sworn to protect. We must do that. Now, I want you to know this. Coming up, I like what Channel 11 did, Mr. Fink, the reporter on Channel 11. I have participated in so many forums, and we really haven't had a true debate. You've had endorsement interviews, but what Mr. Fink did at Channel 11, you're going to have the opportunity to see each candidate. And you have to sink and swim on your own because he asked the questions and you answer them based on your knowledge and what you are proposing to do when I hopefully become the congressional person in Congressional District 30. But they ask you specific questions and you'll have an opportunity to see us unfiltered. That's going to run on their streaming service as well as online. And so I was told that we'll have an opportunity. It will be tweeted, and I will inform you about when that's going on so that you'll have an opportunity to see candidates unfiltered. I have been out here, and my favorite thing to do is campaign because, I actually enjoy campaigning, meeting the voters where they are. So that's what I'm asking you to do. Barbara Mallory Caraway. Barbara, you know me, number 5 on the ballot. That shows that I'm committed. That shows that I'm dedicated. The same position I've been asking for your vote. I was not afraid to challenge the establishment, and I continue not to be afraid of doing what I believe is right. I actually got an email, and I have not answered this gentleman yet, but he asked me, what is the first bill that you would introduce when you go to Washington? And it really has to do with crafting legislation to stabilize our community, to make sure that we can be a part of the influx of the dollars that will do exactly what I talked to you earlier. They have what's called these enterprise funds that if you have to get a designation, but once you get that designation, you have the resources almost to redesign particular areas in your communities, in our district. So that is what I would propose to do. As a city council person, we did a lot of that, but I want a zone to where we can go in and make sure that all of our areas look like downtown. I'm proud of the things that we did to jumpstart what I call the Emerald City. But all of areas of our city must look and feel safe. We must do that. We cannot lose sight of this democracy. And I'm really concerned about the rhetoric that we consistently see. But I'm asking for you to be a part of this process. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of doing the things that you are necessary. Now, the reason I do know are necessary, that I brought out the interview that I'm doing with Channel 11, is one thing that is sitting up in Washington, and you're going to hear about it too consistently. It's still up there, that there's a bill in the Senate. You know, we have two chambers, the House and the Senate, and then you have the presidency. And the founders established the three branches of government. You have the legislative, the executive, and the judicial parts of our government. But the decriminalization of cannabis, now, that's, sounds, I'm not advocating that people be allowed to go and just smoke marijuana. That's not the issue, because there is really a difference between legalization and decriminalization. Decriminalization means that you can possess a small amount of marijuana for personal use and you would not be arrested, you would not be criminalized, because as part of this crime bill that we are still under, we have so many more of our communities of color who are disproportionately incarcerated for years just for the possession. Now, what has happened, you have a lot of DAs who have taken upon themselves to say, okay, we're not going to prosecute based on a certain amount. But state laws and federal laws are different. And federal laws supersede state law. And what's interesting is that if you own, now Texas has the legalization of medicinal marijuana, which means that your doctor can actually prescribe that, and there are some dispensaries in different parts of the city. But what's interesting about that is that what you look at is how is it that these businesses are allowed to operate? Well, they cannot use what we call legitimate businesses to actually transact business, because guess what? Federal law is illegal. It's illegal to use marijuana, so you have a conflict for that. So technically, they can't even transact business in a bank because it is illegal to sell marijuana. So that's a whole big issue. How is it that businesses, farmers cannot use farmland or water on farmland to grow cannabis? So my position is, because of the disproportionate number of people of color who have ended up incarcerated, families, young people, you are technically, it used to be that if you're 16 years old, you go to juvenile detention, but because of the escalation of violent crime and the levels of crime that we've seen, people aren't really, it's just terrible, the level of violence, and this is real. So I support the decriminalization of cannabis to allow for the deprosecution of young people who find themselves and their lives are ruined. Because the interesting thing about it, when it becomes legal, there is a bill right now to decriminalize marijuana, cannabis, and it's stuck in the U.S. Senate. So don't go ahead and say, Barbara Mallory Caraway, Barbara is for us to be blowing up smoke. But let me tell you one thing. And the other thing that I realized is when I'm out campaigning or if I'm driving down the street, you don't even have to be in there. You just the smoke is just coming out the windows and you see smoke everywhere. They're using it. So the unfortunate thing about it is, I don't want people to show up at work. That you would have to set particular parameters and laws. You're not supposed to show up at work intoxicated. You're not supposed to drive under the influence. So certain parameters and laws are in place to deal with that. But you have states like Colorado who has seen their tax base grow because of the legalization. They actually legalized it because they went on a ballot. Their voters went to a ballot. Texas can't even get it on the ballot because it's a conservative state. So that is where I am with that. People ask me about that, particularly young people want to know, what is your position? And my position is that I don't think that a person should go and spend 2 and 3 and 5 years incarcerated. And that means that we cannot continue to support prisons for profit. Because if you have a business, which prison for profit in some areas and some prisons are, then it's like a business. You got to have someone to support your business. And that was a few years ago. You didn't hear a lot about it now, but it's very controversial because everything just goes through a wave. Just kind of goes through a wave. But I don't want to just keep it. That is what Barbara Mallory stands for. I want to go to Washington to make sure that you have someone who can be your voice. I don't want just a seat at the table. I mean, some people are satisfied with just going up and having a meal. Not me. In fact, a lot of times I show up at those events, say hi, and I was gone. I did not linger. And I'm going to tell you, that's mainly because my father, who passed away in last April, said you do not run to a fire, which means if something's going on, said, well, don't go to that. But not that that's the situation, but because of that, I just don't linger. I don't linger places at all. But we've got to do something with this gun violence. And I will tell you, I would tell when the early on with this onset of all these games and everybody has a phone, here's mine right here, and everybody has a phone. And so what happens with these phones is that you have anything that you want at your disposal. You have games that kids stay on all night and all day, literally playing these games. Then why am I saying that? Death is real. Death is real. You're not going to play this game, go and recharge and come back, start off where you were, or reload. Death in this world is final. It is final. Gun violence is real. Our young people are dying at an accelerated rate. So people say, oh, states should have the power to dictate their own laws. Well, if that's the case, we would not, really, the Civil War was fought because the states want to keep the institution of slavery. And they can talk about CRT, critical race theory. They can talk about the fact that racism is taught in schools. But the truth of the matter is that history can be validated. I don't mean alternative facts. History can be validated. So when a person takes up a weapon, we're dealing with gun violence now. Merrick Adams in New York said he's going to deal with it. He is going to deal with it. I take that stand too, that we do need stronger laws to protect the communities. Because it's not the legal people who have all these weapons. You can go and buy a weapon on the street. Literally. Buy weapons on the street. Black market, undermarket. So laws don't always prevent the inevitable happening. And I'm not for over prosecution. But we've got to go back to a mindset. And so I'm asking you to send me to Washington so that we can look at how we can get these gun laws under control, make our cities more viable. We have to look at how we're going to deal with climate change. We have to look at how we're going to deal with education, Barbara, and we must look at how we're going to deal with violence, a comprehensive approach to violence. I shared with you before, a friend of mine, Reverend Anthony Williams in Chicago, got a resolution passed where you look at violence in a holistic approach, where you deal with levels of it, whether it's gun violence, whether it is domestic violence, terrorism. Look what happened in Colleyville. People are just beside themselves, and they've said that that was an act of terrorism. So if you want an independent problem solver, I'm a Democrat. But what that independence means is that I'm going to Washington to bid your tide, to be your voice. And so we've got to look at families and how we're impacted by that, how our families are going to survive in this digital age, in this technology age. I will not be afraid. I am not afraid. There are 9 people in the race that I'm running for, but you know me. You know Barbara. You know Barbara. And so on March the 1st, you have a distinct opportunity to make sure that we're transitioning into a time where all of us, whether it's our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, who paved the way for us, who gave us the opportunity for a better life, you have an opportunity for your grandchildren to earn a better life. You have an opportunity for you to stabilize what you have worked so hard for. And most importantly, you have an opportunity to send someone to Washington who will have your back, because I will. I'm not trying to, find an election where I can land. I am not looking for a landing place. I am asking you for an opportunity to serve you, to better our communities, to better our nation, and to bring about an opportunity for all of us to take advantage of what the Constitution has given us: the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'm Barbara, and thank you for giving me a moment. We'll see you again next week, right here at 7 p.m. Thank you for joining me. Remember, Election Day is March the 1st. Early voting is only 2 weeks away, February the 14th through the 25th, and I will consistently keep you updated. I will give you polling places, because those are going to be released where you can vote anywhere, doing early voting at any polling place. But on the day of election, you must vote at your polling location in your community. So far, and sometimes that changes too. But remember, if you did not vote today, register to vote. Register to vote. In the March 1st election, it's too late. But you can still register, because you can register in upcoming elections. And remember, you only give as good as you get, and you only get as give as you give. Oh, I got to say one more thing. I'm sorry about all of you who lost, your teams lost and not going to the Super Bowl. I had to say that, and so many people are broken heart because the Chiefs didn't go, but all the top tier quarterbacks got knocked out. Sorry, I had to say that on my last commentary. But again, thank you for your time, and we'll see you next week right here. I'm Barbara Mallory Caraway. Thanks for giving me a moment.